Welcome to a meeting of the North Penn School District's Board of School Directors, October 10th. Tonight is our regularly scheduled work session. The meeting is being videotaped for community cable channels. Individuals attending this meeting and intending to speak to the board should be aware they're being videotaped. In order to meet the requirements of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the board during the meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the board come to the microphone, state their name and address, and sign the Audience of Citizens logbook. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments to allow time for all those who wish to speak to the board. The board president may ask the individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker, and this is in reference to board policy 8340. I'd like to start off with a Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Schilling.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would assume that this is being run by Mr. Shiraki tonight.
Good evening, members of the school board. Hope everyone's doing well. Tonight we have a presentation dealing with what I think is a pretty exciting program, a program designed to deliver some additional need to those that are most needy in our community. It's a real estate tax rebate program, and I'll go over the specifics. One of the nice things about the program, it basically piggybacks off of an existing program that exists already at the state level. So it's not necessarily creation of any kind of new administrative guidelines or procedures already in place at the state level. We would be simply piggybacking on that state program that exists now. And it's existed for quite some time. So that statewide program is administered by the Pennsylvania Department of Revenue. And actually, again, it's been around for a long period of time, and it's funded through lottery and slot proceeds. And there is a limit. It's $35,000 limit for per household, and there's a lower limit for renters. So the program run by the state is for property owners or renters, $35,000 household income limit. There's three ways to become eligible. Besides income-based, there's three ways to become eligible for the program at the state level. That's through reaching age 65, widow or widower, age 50 or older, or if you're 18 or older and permanently disabled, you would also qualify if you meet the income guidelines. So the maximum rebate that's permitted by the state per household is $650. However, the state also has what are called supplemental rebates for homeowners, and it can actually boost the rebate by an additional 50%. So the maximum could actually rise up to $975. And that is really for individuals that live in 3 counties. Montgomery County is not one of those 3 counties, or if individuals pay more than 15% of their total income in property taxes. That's how individuals can qualify for the supplemental rebate. It is a sliding scale, so the more money you make, the less money is available for a rebate, and all income is counted. That's really important to note, because if individuals have any kind of investment income, capital gains through investments, or dividends or interest income, that is counted. So it's not just earned income, all income is counted. However, 1/2 of Social Security income would be counted towards the total household income. So the sliding scale, again, this is the state program. If an individual earns between $0 and $8,000, they would be eligible for the maximum $650 rebate. We're not going to talk about supplementals. We're really going to focus on the core rebate that's at issue here, because our recommendation that we'll present in a little bit, we're not recommending any consideration for the supplemental rebates. We're really talking about the core rebates. The rebate then would decline down to the point of $250 rebate if the household income is between $18,000 and $35,000. And these thresholds were expanded, I think, about 7 years ago at the state level. I think the income guidelines were raised and the maximum rebate was also raised. I'd like to do a case study, share some information about a case study in a school district that I was previously affiliated with, Penn Manor School District in Lancaster County, because this is the only district that I'm aware of that has implemented a program similar to this. And their program was implemented back in 2006 with the passage of Act 1, which actually permitted this type of rebate. And they also piggyback on the existing state program. I mentioned earlier that the state can issue rebates for not only homeowners, but for renters. At Penn Manor, they only issue rebates to property owners, and that will be our recommendation in a moment as well. And basically the way it works is the individual applies through the state for the rebate. They have to meet all of their criteria set forth at the state level through the Department of Revenue. Once all that information is submitted to the state and a rebate is received, the individual completes a district form, provides documentation that they received a state rebate, and then the district issues a rebate to the individual. So at Penn Manor, at least, they issue rebates up to $650, but only use those two lowest tiers of income. So we had two tiers, 0 to 8,000, and then 8,001 up to $15,000. So at that district, they only limit the two lowest tiers of income. They do not consider any supplements, and their experience found that they were budgeting and paying out about $80,000 a year in rebates, and that actually represented about only 50% of those individuals that were eligible in those two lowest tiers. So it's important information for us to use to determine or answer the question, well, if we move forward with this, how much money will we need to budget for the rebate program? In their experience, they found that about 50% of those that were eligible actually applied and received a rebate. The state provides data specific to each individual school district and takes a look at the actual rebates and the number of claimants that process claims through the statewide program. This data that's on the board now shows the various income levels and the number of claimants and the total state rebates that were issued. Again, this data here does not include any supplements. This is based on straight base rebates, if you will. Now, this information is the latest information that was available. This is from the state rebates that were issued in 2016 for taxes that were paid in 2015. The state issues the rebates. It's always 1 year in arrears. So, for example, those individuals that are applying through the state now in 2017, it's based on taxes that were paid in 2016. Okay, so the total 1,646 claimants, about $550,000 in rebates issued at the state level. So moving forward to the recommendation that we presented and was supported by the Finance Committee meeting at the September meeting. Again, to reiterate, this would be for property owners only. Renters, even though they're eligible at the state level, would not be eligible through this program if implemented by the board here at North Penn School District. No supplements would be eligible. And we're recommending for the first year 25% match of the granted state rebate based on the base amount that the state issues in a rebate, 25%. And our thought process behind that was if we started out lower, we can always increase the amount later. We can ramp it up. You know, if it works well the first year, 25% might be 50% the second year. Maybe it's 75% the third year. Maybe it's 100% at some point in the future, a dollar for dollar match. But we felt it was important to start lower and ratchet that up as opposed to just going in year one at 100%. And then if you start out at the maximum, it's kind of hard to pull back once you start out at a maximum amount, kind of ramp it in. It would be an annual approval by the board. So if the board would support this, it would be for the 2018 year. It could be increased in the future. The sample resolution that's at your place tonight indicates that basically this action, the board resolution, it would be repealed at the end of the year. So that way it would be up for consideration each and every year by the school board. It would not continue in perpetuity. It would have to be reconsidered every year by the school board. Now, using the figures that I just shared earlier about the state rebates, if we use the 25% threshold, that would leave us $137,391 would be the maximum amount. So if every property owner that was eligible for the state program applied through North Penn, 1,646 individuals, and we would match that with a 25% rebate of our own, that $549,000 at the state level becomes $137,000 at the North Penn level, 25%. Now, if we use that other district's experience of 50%, we would simply slice the $137,000 in half, and that would be roughly our expected level the first year. Now, I would hope that we would be able to garner more than 50%, but based on that other district's experience, that might be reasonable to budget maybe $70,000, $75,000 in terms of a budget figure the first year. So the way we look at North Penn going through each and every income level, starting at the maximum rebate, $650, 25% rebate would yield $162.50 rebate for that particular household. The lowest rebate would be $62.50 rebate. Now, just for a point of comparison, taking a look at our current year budget, the 2017-18 budget, the school district had a 1.99% tax increase, and based on the average homestead assessment of $148,000, that yielded a average homestead property increase of $71. So it basically, even at the lowest tier, it would basically cover the increase with the 1.99 tax increase that we've had this past year, just for a point of comparison. Other money that would be available besides the state program, the North Penn program, just a point of reference again to keep in mind that North Penn School District also has a $209 homestead exclusion. So when you add all that up, the average tax bill for a residential property owner, homestead property in North Penn School District is $3,650. So if an individual received the maximum rebate between the North Penn program, the state program, and the homestead exclusion, that would represent about 29% of the total tax bill. That would be basically forgiven through rebates or the homestead exclusion. Okay, so to reiterate, we are recommending to the board and through the Finance Committee moving forward with this resolution. The way it would work is it would commence on 7/1/2018. It would be for taxes the individual paid in 2017, school taxes paid in 2017. So in essence, taxes paid from July 1, 2017 through the end of December 2017. The individual would have the entire fiscal year to apply to the school district. There's an application form, a one-page application form that's in your packet as well, pretty simplistic form, basically asking the individual to pull information from their state return, their rebate, property tax and rent rebate application, complete that document, that one-page document, along with proof that they received the state rebate. And we're considering the Department of Revenue will do its due diligence and make a determination and properly grant a rebate or deny a rebate. So the only vetting we're going to do at that point is to verify the individual did apply through the state, did receive a rebate, and does pay property taxes in North Penn School District. After that, we would process a refund. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the program. Mr. O'Donnell?
Steve, yeah, would you mention, I brought two things up at the Finance Committee. One was 1099s and the other was right to know. If you could explain that to the board about confidentiality of Social Security numbers.
Right. If there be a right to know request, obviously this would be an invoice paid through our accounts payable if somebody applies for a rebate. So if a right to know request was submitted, if there's a Social Security number on the application, we would redact that information. Any kind of income information that's on the application, we would redact that from the application.
And as I said before, properly redact, because I told you, I got something from Souderton. They did it and it still came through.
And the second question about the 1099, I've done some preliminary research on this, and it doesn't appear that we would need to issue a 1099, even though, you know, first off, if you follow the recommendation and the board would approve this, the 25% threshold, a 1099 would never be issued because the maximum rebate is $162.50. The 1099 limit is $600. But let's just say at some point in the future, let's say it would be 100% of the state amount. The state maximum is $650. So let's say, theoretically, we issued at some point in the future a rebate of $650. In my reading on the tax code with this, on the IRS site, it indicates that we would not need to issue a 1099. However, the property owner would need to file an amended tax return if they itemize their taxes as a deduction on their tax return. That would be up to the property owner, that we would not need to issue a 1099. It's a rebate for an expense that was previously paid, so it would not qualify for a 1099. And then in terms of filing an amended tax return, that's really at the, that's the onus on the taxpayer to do that, you know, based on any kind of tax guidance they receive. But my reading indicates that the property owner would need to file an amended tax return.
Steve, is there a reason why you only have such in the other district? Was there any speculation to why they had that? 50% turnout?
That's a great question, Mr. Sapinski, and I share with Dr. Dietrich that what was interesting, now they've had the program for 11 years. The largest number of individuals that applied was in year one. You would think it would grow year after year as word spreads about the program. The largest number they had was in year one. So it was quite baffling, honestly, in terms of.
I mean, is it an outreach program situation where we're going to have to go out to the communities and explain this, how this works? Because I would assume it's just a complex process for a lot of people.
Yeah. What we did at the other district is we reached out to local legislators. That was actually very critical because a lot of individuals will go to their local legislative office to get the application for the Pennsylvania property tax rebate. So we had all the literature. There was a brochure that was developed. Our application was there. We met with the local legislators to, garner their support in promoting the program. So quite honestly, it's free money in terms of the rebate if you file the application. The application for the school district, it's a minimal requirement. I think it can be completed in probably 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That's something the school district can certainly help with our application. I don't think we would provide assistance with the state application, but our application we certainly would. So I think it's something that if the board considers moving forward with this, I think the sooner the resolution is passed, the better. That way we can start with our outreach program and our publicity program.
Is the 50% number a factor that they only gave it to residential properties, not renters?
No.
No? That had nothing to do with the fact
No, that was more a philosophical decision.
How many people would we estimate this would benefit?
Well, just using the data that we had from the last state report, we had 1,646 individuals. So these would be the individuals that applied through the state program. There may be more individuals that are eligible, but for some reason don't apply through the state program.
So potentially could be more than that if there were more claimants at the state level, correct?
Correct, yeah. Theoretically, there could be another 1,600 individuals out there that are otherwise eligible, but for whatever reason don't apply for the program. And if they don't apply through the state, they can't apply through North Penn. So I think it's safe, Mrs. Charnock, the first year, there's two approaches. Budget just a full 100% of the maximum amount, assuming everybody applies. That way it provides a little cushion in case maybe more individuals apply through the state, or simply take maybe 75% of that level. It's not a large dollar difference either way, whether you budget at 50%, 75%, or 100%.
And also that the numbers you got from the state also includes renters, not many, but it does.
No, I stripped that out. They actually, at the state level, they actually break out homeowners, renters, and supplemental. So the data I shared is purely homeowners.
Okay, good.
Mr. Diazio?
Sure. Have you done any analysis on the administrative costs through your office? Do you need additional staff, or what's going to be the cost to implement?
We'll make it work without any additional staff. There's no question if we have 1,600 individuals make application for the program, it's about 15-minute processing time review to make sure that everything's in order before it can move on to accounts payable. So we'll make it work internally. We certainly won't request any additional staff.
There'd be no incremental cost.
Correct.
That's great.
Correct.
Mrs. Perkowski, you have a question? Do you really realistically think 25% budget the first year? Since that might be our big year?
Yeah, I think we should estimate 100%. Yeah, I think so. Just to be safe, we can see how it goes the first year.
Steve, has there been any analysis right now at what our 18-19 budget looks like?
I did update my 5-year financial forecast, and the 18-19 budget year I mentioned at the Finance Committee is going to be quite challenging. There's no question about it. Our preliminary numbers are looking at, a significant deficit absent any tax increase, and even with the Act 1 index of 2.4% next year, it still will be a significant deficit. Now it's October. These are projections. There's a lot of work. We really haven't started the 18-19 budget yet. But the projections, certainly could change between now and final budget. But one thing I don't think will change is that there will be a deficit budget for next year, as there was this year.
So this would just be a a general fund reduction, right? Would we just pull this from the fund balance, presumably?
In essence, yes.
What's the average turnaround time once somebody's approved check to receive the rebate check?
Another great question. We actually tracked that on a spreadsheet in Lancaster County at Penn Manor School District to make sure that we were having a timely turnaround time. The average turnaround time from the time the school district received it until the AP check went out was about 21 days on average.
Does the state supply you with enough information to verify what they got?
Yes, when the property owner receives the rebate, it comes in one of two forms, either direct deposit. So in that particular case, we would ask for a copy of the bank statement because it'll show, you know, a payment from the Pennsylvania Department of Revenue, or a copy of the actual check. Department of Revenue encourages individuals to sign up for direct deposit, which we would also, by the way, because we can make an ACH payment to the individuals to reduce our internal processing time. So that's what we would ask for from the property owner.
Would you see a distinction between a regular refund for something else versus this as a property rebate? Or is that something you have to go to the state to get that information?
I think everything that the property owner receives from the state is sufficient for us to issue the rebate.
Anybody else got any further questions? Go ahead.
One of, go ahead.
Ms. Prokowski, go ahead.
Steve, how do you, can a non-resident property owner get this rebate?
A non-resident property owner. Interesting.
If it's residential, it would qualify, right?
Let me just think this through. I'm just envisioning the state application process.
Well, doesn't it have to be your primary residence?
Has to be the primary residence. You have to meet the income threshold. You have to provide proof that you paid the property taxes.
So if it has to be
Proof
your
of income.
primary residence, then it would
Well,
not
yeah, when they do the homestead
preclude.
exemption, it has to be your primary residence. Or the farmstead, it has to be your primary residence.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Diazio?
One of the questions that one of the things we talked a little bit about at finance was people that fall just over these income thresholds who, you know, the general concept here is we're trying to give some relief to low-income residents. A lot of residents that make just over the $35,000 threshold may feel that they too are low income and there's no opportunity through this program to get any relief. Was there any consideration to, you know, some school districts do programs where seniors can come in and they can volunteer in the schools, perform, you know, regular, routine, minor tasks so that everybody could benefit from it and the school district would get something in return. Now, I guess there's a cost to supervise people when they come in, but just from the standpoint of trying to open it up to anybody, did we give any consideration to that?
Well, I can speak from my experience. Rewind to 2006 once again. That was a consideration because there were a number of programs that are still in operation at various school districts that are, we call it a senior volunteer program or a SMILES program or something like that. And when we considered that and had the legal review and so forth, that was wrought with more potential pitfalls. For example, if somebody comes in, are they a volunteer? Are they an employee? Are they an independent contractor? How are you paying them? Are you giving them a paycheck? Or are you giving them a rebate? If you're giving them a rebate, do you have to somehow back into, well, what was the hourly wage based on the hours they worked? Are you paying them minimum wage? What if they get hurt when they're working? Is it workers' compensation? Well, it goes back to, are they an employee? Are they a volunteer? So there was so many considerations regarding that, and you know, that would be a separate program in and of itself that would have a large degree of internal management that would be required. We felt the nice thing about this program was, since it's piggybacking on an existing program that's doing the lion's share of the vetting, the administrative costs and oversight is minimal. So that's why we felt it was better, was certainly more easily implemented. It was less bureaucracy. It was less administrative time. There was no outright costs with additional staff. The legal considerations were far fewer. And that board resolution that's in front of you tonight, it should be pointed out that Mr. Dooley did review the resolution and had no reservations with the resolution. It's permitted. He indicated there have been no challenges to a program like this since 2006. And it's expressly permitted under Act 1 as well, the rebates at the local level.
I'll take public comment in a second, but, I mean,
I've got a question.
you want to answer another question?
Recently, I think this is great. And I recently met a gentleman who was 65 years old from Texas. And in their state, what they did, I don't know if it's the whole state or his county or whatever, for taxes, once you hit 65, they freeze them. And we were talking about it. I said, and his wife was younger, so I said to her, I said, boy, your wife's a lot younger. What happens if you die? And he said to me, oh, no, once, if something happens to me, she's included. So I know we can't do anything like that, but the state could. I think that wouldn't be a bad idea for the state to do something like that. When you reach 65, your taxes are frozen. So I thought it was
agree
great.
with that.
Well, I'm just saying, and I know we can't, but this is, for us, I think this is a great idea, and I support it 100%.
Thank you. Mr. Schoen, that concept of freezing taxes once you reach a certain age, that's come up as proposed legislation in years past. It just didn't garner enough support, but it's been talked about for a number of years. And, we've been hearing about property tax reform or property tax elimination for a long, long time. For the last 40 to 50 years. It's heated up maybe a little bit more recently, in recent years. So that's why we feel, too, that this is an excellent program to provide some relief at the local level for those that are most needy based on income levels. And if someone ends up making $35,000 and $10, they're going to be upset they don't meet the threshold. If the guideline, if the maximum was $50,000, the person making $50,000 and $10 would be equally upset as well.
That. We know that. Yeah.
So
I agree.
And the reason why we're capping at 35 is simply because that's the state limit. Right. If we would increase above 35,000, now we're dealing with a whole new vetting process that we're bringing in-house as opposed to allowing the Department of Revenue to do.
The other thing, though, if we're going to implement a program like this, I would really rather see an outreach program to try to recruit as many people that can participate in the program, even if that means taking that 1,646 number higher. I would assume that just people don't know about the program, or they feel it's too complex, and when it really might not be for them.
Yeah, that's a point well taken.
That happens all the time.
Yeah, I think we need to do that. I agree.
Because we saw that with the homestead exemption, and when people started applying, people looked at us like they had no clue how to do it, yet it was as simple as signing a form and sending it in, and people didn't know. There's if you're going to do something like this, I really think you need to do the outreach program with it to complement it so that you at least do what you expected it to do, which is to help people of low income in this process.
Absolutely.
So, yep. Steve, would you relinquish the microphone but still answer questions if some come your way? I'm going to ask for public comment. If anybody has any comment, please step forward, state your name and address for us. Okay, that's fine. What do you guys want to do? You want to send this forward the way the recommendation
absolutely. Absolutely.
Then we'll put it on the agenda for next Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Is that time frame for you?
That's perfect. Thank you.
And you should incorporate it, obviously, in your budgeting
Thanks,
process
Steve.
as it goes forward.
Thank you.
All right. Motion to adjourn this work session?
Thanks, Steve.
Done.